Hello, and thanks for stopping by. I saw a picture of an item a while back, and I thought it would be a nice, simple little project I could make from the leftovers bin. Some people would call it a scrap bin, but I like to always say I don't have scraps, just pieces I haven't used yet. So I'm looking in there to find a few suitable pieces for this project. Shouldn't need much, so these should be plenty. This project is going to be made completely from small pieces, so I'm going to rip this little board into pieces about an inch and a half wide or so and see how many I get. Here again, if you don't have a table saw, you could just buy 1x2s from your local lumber supplier in a number of different species, pine or hardwoods. Anything you like will work. Not even sure what wood this is. Spalted something, possibly beech. I got 5 pieces out of that board, so I'll see how far that takes me. Over at the miter saw, I start out cutting the longest piece I'll need, which is 9 inches. Then I cut the next one at 8 inches, and then 6.5 or so, and on down at random lengths. So even most of the offcuts I'm getting here will be used. I lay them out kind of as I go just to get a look at proportions and adjust my cuts to what I think it needs. I'm going to use a total of 12 pieces for the main outer structure, and then I'll cut one more piece later on to fill in the center. I maybe just got everything I need out of that one little board. So the first 3 pieces I cut at 9, 8, and 6.5, I'm going to glue up into what will be the back. So I'm just doing a simple glue up, lining up all 3 pieces at one end and clamping it and setting it aside to dry. And while that's drying, I work on another project I'm working on, and you'll see that in another video. But I make use of the time it takes for the glue to set up sufficiently. Then it comes out of the clamps and I get back to my childhood and start playing with blocks. I really am building something here, I promise. I lay it out enough that I'm satisfied with it and the front 3 pieces. So I take them and do a quick glue up of those too. A single clamp does the job for those little pieces. And with that set aside to dry, I can start gluing up the rest of it. I'm going to use a brad nailer here, and mainly just to hold each piece from moving around. Since there's going to be 4 pieces on each side, it would be pretty frustrating to try to get them all lined up and get it all clamped up without them moving around on that slippery glue. Kind of like herding cats. It's just not going to work out well. If you don't have a brad nailer, I'd recommend doing 1 piece at a time on each side and clamping them until the glue sets up enough to hold them in place. Then doing the next pieces and so on, which would work, but it'd just take a little longer. I'm being careful here to not get the brads outside of the area the next piece will cover because I don't want any of the brads to show. Also notice I'm using a little acid brush here to spread the glue and not my finger. I feel so sophisticated. And these little acid brushes are handy and are so cheap they're basically throwaways, but wood glue cleans right up with water, so you can even reuse them. You can get them at the cheap tool store, but also online for like 15 cents a piece or cheaper if you buy them by the gross. I'll leave a link in the description like I always do for some of the stuff I use and like in each video. After I get it all basically together, I add some clamps to get the spots that the brad nails aren't. And I can now cut a piece to the right length to fill in that center section on the bottom. Once I get it fitting nicely, I mark center and take it to the drill press to cut a hole with a 3/4 inch Forstner bit. It's a small enough piece that it's unsafe to try and hold with my hand, so I'm using this old screw clamp to hold it. I think the front has been in the clamp long enough that I can finish putting this thing together, so the centerpiece gets a little glue and it goes in. And I'm holding it up from the bottom 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch or so, and I'll show you why later. Then the front piece gets some glue and goes on. No brads, just clamps for this. Little time to dry and off come the clamps, and there it is. Isn't it wonderful? You're probably thinking, yeah, it's great. What the heck is it? Well, you get a big clue here in a minute. But first, I need to enlarge this cavity on the bottom that there is from holding that centerpiece up a bit. I'm using a Forstner bit off to one side, and I'll just go as deep as that existing cavity. So I'm just kind of adding an adjoining room there. That should be enough. Also need another hole going from that cavity out the back of the piece, so a 1/4 inch bit does that job. I bet you're figuring out what I'm doing here and what this thing is or is going to be. I do a little sanding, then I add a little finish, just using some tung oil to darken the wood some and bring out the grain. Brush it on, let it soak in for a while, then rag it off. About as easy as it gets, and it brings out the character of the wood nicely, I think. So here's the giveaway. It's getting a light socket. The wires go through that hole in the bottom, and it tucks right down in there. And I pre-drilled pilot holes for screws so I can screw it in from above. I'm just running the 2 wires out the hole in the back, and they'll go right into an inline switch for now. I didn't really think about it until now, but I need to get these screws down in there, and there isn't much room to work, and this isn't a magnetized bit. I've got some tiny little magnets, and one of those might just do the trick. Quick trip to the toolbox, and we'll see if this works. Looks like it'll hold enough to get it in there. Success! It's a tiny little magnet just stuck on the side of the bit, and it's just enough to hold those little screws. See? Tiny little thing. And here's all it takes to hold that screw if you don't have a magnetized bit. Just stick it on there close enough to the end to touch the screw, and you're good to go. So I made that cavity on the bottom for wire nuts or WAGO connectors. I ended up and didn't make that kind of connection on this one because it kind of depends on the type of light bulb socket you use. This one has wires permanently attached, and for right now I'm just going to run them right out the hole in the back and into an inline switch. I'm not sure I'll keep that or not. I may change it out because you can get purpose-made lamp cords with a switch already wired in that would probably be more secure and all UL approved and all that. But for the time being, this will work okay, I think. I'm actually pretty surprised. I managed to fiddle around with this switch and about 10 tiny little screws, and I didn't lose a single one. Normally I'd knock one off the edge of the bench and it would go into shop oblivion, never to be seen again. But I managed to avoid that this time. Glory be. So with the addition of a light bulb, and a little bit of that less trickety stuff, no sparks or flames. Hey, it works. Let there be light. This isn't going to win any design awards or anything, but it was a fun little project and fairly easy to make. I showed you what you can do with some leftover wood, nothing but straight cuts, glue, and a little hardware. So you might even say it was enlightening. You knew it was coming. See you next time.